Hi everyone, I'm Lara Diaz Garcia and my talk is called Wax Moths, Ultrasonic Hearing and Potential Pest Control. This research is a collaboration between the University of Strathclyde in the UK and the National Agriculture and Food Research Organisation in Japan, and it's been funded by the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. First of all, what are wax moths? So, wax moth refers mainly to two species of moths that are pests to beehives. They are commonly known as the greater wax moth and the lesser wax moth. And they're actually becoming more and more of an issue globally due to their expanding range with temperatures increasing worldwide. Wax moths share another trait, which is that being nocturnal, they're mostly predated by bats, which use ultrasonic location for hunting and for which these moths have developed ultrasonic hearing. So the idea of the project is to exploit this ultrasonic hearing for pest control. And additionally, bees do not have a sense of hearing, so we're sure this technique would bother them. We'll start with the greater wax moth, which is the most harmful to bees of the two. So to optimize this technique, we need to find out exactly what frequencies and what temporal pattern will get the strongest response from the moth. So for this, we evaluate their behavior when exposed to ultrasound in what's called tethered flight experiments. The moths are held in such a way that does not impede their wing movement and are recorded with a high-speed camera while being exposed to bat calls. Then using a software, we're able to track the position of the head and then we can analyze that data, which is the little purple dot you see in the video. While the research is still in progress and we need to evaluate a significant number of moths before we get results, we can see how the movement of the head for this one matches the reception of the bat signal at 0 seconds. Another aspect of wax moths that is interesting is their ultrasonic hearing, and particularly lesser wax moths have evolved their bat evasion detectors to be exploited also for intraspecific communication and mating. The female moths track the males, which produce ultrasonic clicks, and for these, the moths need to be able to precisely pinpoint the origin of the sound, which is called directional hearing. But they will also stop flying or walking when they hear a bat, so they can tell bats and males apart. And the thing is that their ears are surprisingly simple. They have two of them on their abdomen, and they're elliptical in shape and have two sections of different thicknesses, with a cluster of 4 neurons directly attached to the eardrum. What's even more interesting about the lesser wax moth is that they can find the males with only one of these ears. And because no other explanation has been found, we hypothesized that this is due to the shape of the ear itself. So we set to replicate this in simulation and the minimum features that would achieve this directionality. And we found that indeed the asymmetry in thickness and the eccentricity of the elliptical shape, together with the neurons being placed where they are, means that there is a stronger response to sounds coming from the front of the moth, which could explain how they track the ultrasonic calls of the males. And to conclude, some of the topics that we would like to explore in the future include: what is the impact on local bats? Ultrasound doesn't travel far, so it shouldn't necessarily be harmful for the bats or their foraging, but it would be good to study this anyway. Other plague moth species with hearing should be susceptible to the same technique if it was adapted to their hearing range. And if the technique and the technology are perfected, perhaps a commercial device designed to be installed on beehives could be developed. And lastly, and slightly more out there might be a chance to develop microphones inspired by the lesser wax moth's directional hearing. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
All right, so we will go ahead and ask Lara some questions, and then George, really glad that you were able to come back. We will go back to your question and answer afterwards.
All right, sounds like a plan. Thanks for the presentation, Laura. We were very excited to learn about these wax moths. And there are some questions in the chat. So the first one is from Richard Lovett. It is, how do you tether them without harming them?
So it's a tiny, tiny clip. And what we do is we hold them through the back of their exoskeleton. So it's like a light pinching of like their most outer layer of like skin, if you will. But this is like quite hard. So you pinch them, but they don't really react to it, but then they cannot move. So obviously there's like some interference with the moth, but in the grand scheme of things, they still fly, they still move. So it's not like we're severely damaging them.
Good to know. Thank you for sharing that. Um, the next question is from Tino, and it is, what software are you using for head tracking?
It's called Deep Lab Cat. I believe you can find it on GitHub, and it's like run through Python. But it has like a GUI that you can use that is like quite intuitive. So yeah, that's the one.
All right, thanks for sharing that. And we have a follow-up question from Richard that is, what exactly do these moths do to beehives?
That's a good question. So basically, what they do is their larvae feed on the products of the bee. So they will eat the wax gum, they will eat sometimes honey, they will eat like different things. So the eggs are first laid on the beehive, and then when they emerge, they start eating through it. And at the same time, they kind of like tunnel through the beehive, and they leave a residue, sort of like silkworms, like that sort of sticky. So that means that bees essentially cannot use like their tunnels on their cells. So what happens is like if the infestation is like very severe, bees end up abandoning the hive completely.
Wow. Okay. Um, I think we got one more question in here. This one's from Avery. Avery's asking, are there other insect species that have similar ultrasonic detection capabilities? And could this approach be used for other forms of pest control?
Yeah, so not all of them, but many insects that are nocturnal have developed ultrasonic hearing. Just because bats are such a big predator of all of these night creatures that many of them will listen to the echolocation signal. So there's definitely this has already been tested on other moth species. So I'm definitely, yeah, I think there could be a real possibility of using it for other things as well.
It's very good to know. I know here in the US, we're wondering about, I'm sure you know, the red lantern moths. So just
Mm,
kind of curious about all the species this might help us with.
hmm Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.